Craving your next action-packed adventure? Audible delivers thrills of every kind on your command, like Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, where a lone astronaut must save humanity from extinction, narrated with stunning intensity by Ray Porter. From electrifying suspense and daring quest to spine-tingling horror and romance in far-off realms, unleash your adventurous side with gripping titles that'll keep you guessing. Discover exclusive Audible originals, hotly anticipated new releases, and must-listen bestsellers that hook you from the first minute. Because Audible knows there's no greater thrill than the one that speaks to you. Discover what lies beyond the edge of your seat. Start your free 30-day trial at audible.com/WonderyUS. That's audible.com/WonderyUS.
And welcome to episode 46 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me as always is my partner in true crime, Mike Big Daddy Gibson. Gibbs, what's going on?
Big Daddy?
Yeah. Fair. I'm going to come up with a new nickname every week.
Who's your daddy? But don't answer that.
Who's your daddy?
Don't answer that.
Every week I'm gonna try to come up with a new nickname. That's going to be my new thing.
I'll call you, I'll call you Shaggy.
Why? Because I need a haircut?
That's never a problem for you.
The ones that I have need to be trimmed.
I'll be like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, you know, because you're always investigating, you know?
Oh, okay, I get it. That's better. I thought it was more based on looks or something. The goatee, I didn't know what you were
Is that what you call that? A goatee?
Something.
Is that, yeah.
Facial hair.
Facial hair.
So let's talk about our new supporters. We had on Patreon, Cynthia Holmes, Nicole Rogers, Samantha Mayberry.
I like that.
Makes you feel all warm and fuzzy.
It does. I just want to whistle that Mayberry opening song.
Like Aunt Bee's making
some pie.
Apple pie or something.
Yeah, Aunt Bee's pie.
It's sitting in the windowsill.
Sitting in the windowsill.
Sill.
Yeah, that too.
That's an argument that my wife and I have all the time.
What?
Window seal versus window sill.
Yeah.
All the time we have that argument.
It's always the sill.
It's funny.
Yeah.
So we had Dina Siegert, Stephanie Paluzzi, Deborah Avis.
Yeah.
Elena.
Just Elena?
Just Elena.
Just Elena. Robert
Lopez Portillo.
Sounds important.
Very important.
Absolutely.
Very regal.
Okay.
I don't know if that's, I don't know if I'm using that word correctly. But
is he from Britain?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't know. Drake Jackson. And Drake actually left us a voicemail on True Crime All the Time.
He did?
So check that out. His girlfriend's birthday he was talking about.
Oh, is it?
So happy birthday, Winter. She listens to this one too.
Winter?
Winter. Her name's Winter.
I like that name.
Yeah.
Huh. How old?
25.
Ooh, big 2-5.
The 2-5.
Yeah.
Man, what about to be 25 again, Gibbs?
Be great.
That'd be amazing, wouldn't it?
With my knowledge base?
With what you knew now, right? You have to know what you know now.
Yeah.
That's where you really gain the advantage.
Maybe I wouldn't then. I don't know.
Julie Bailey, Shonda Shepard, and then on PayPal, we actually had a lot of PayPal support. We had Ashley Stanley, Harvey Kiraz, Alana Bush, and Amy Hussey. And then if we go back into the Patreon vault, so this week we selected Deb from Missouri.
Deb,
longtime supporter. Unbelievably grateful for Deb and everybody that continues to support us, and all these new folks that are jumping on and saying, "Hey, we appreciate what you do. Here's a little something every month or every now and then on PayPal." Because some people are using PayPal to, whenever they feel like it, throw us a little something. It's awesome.
Appreciate all of it.
And then I'd be remiss if I left out all of our social media fans. I mean, they are turning people on to the show in droves.
Yeah.
Whether it's through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or word of mouth.
And the true crime all the time tattoos. Love it.
Yeah, a lot of true crime all the time tattoos with Gibby's face on them.
Yeah.
If you have one, send us a picture.
Yeah. If you keep it more than 2 years, I'll pay for it to have it removed later.
2 years is a long time with that mug, man. With either of our mugs, that's a long time. All right, so make sure you check out True Crime All the Time. Got a big timer that's come out, Jeffrey Dahmer. JD, we've been waiting on this one for a while. Maggie's been chomping at the bit to talk about Jeffrey Dahmer.
Well, it's like her local neighborhood or something.
Right in her backyard. All right, Gibbs, you ready to jump into this episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
I am. Let's do it.
I don't know what I'd say if you said, no, I'm not feeling it.
Let's do the Tone Loc thing.
You do it by yourself.
Let's do it.
That did not sound like Tone Loc.
No.
At all.
I don't know who it sounded like.
It actually sounded like Rocky.
Hey.
We'll do it. Yo, Adrian.
Yo, Adrian.
But this week, we are talking about Juliana Redding. And Juliana was a beautiful 21-year-old college student.
Stunning.
She was just such a pretty person, inside and out. We talk about that a lot. But she had the outer beauty. I think she had the inner beauty. Like I said, she was in college. At 21 years old, she was already a model. She was doing some acting. I mean, this was somebody that was really getting ready to go somewhere. Was already on her way. Modeling in Los Angeles, at the time living in Santa Monica.
Which is itself is a beautiful place. Santa Monica.
Well, sure.
Been there. Love it.
You've been everywhere, man.
I like that traveling song.
What song is that, Gibbs?
Don't know. But it's a good song.
The traveling song.
Yeah,
Like what? Ramblin' Man or traveling
song. Let's just move on.
Okay. I thought you really had it that time.
Yeah, it came and went.
We were really going somewhere.
Yeah.
But everything you read about Juliana was that, everybody thought she was a sweet girl. She had a great sense of humor. She was an overachiever. She put everything she had into whatever it was that she was passionate about. And people were drawn to her.
Yeah, she was described as one of those people that she walked into the room, people naturally gravitated towards her. They wanted to be around her. Now, that also brought on a lot of men wanted to be around her as well because, she was gorgeous.
Yeah, I think she attracted a lot of men.
Yeah, probably some creepers.
Well, that's the problem. I mean, you're going to attract some great people. You're going to attract some not so great people.
Right.
You don't always get to pick and choose when you have that kind of magnetic personality. Now, you can choose who you hang out with.
Right.
Or who you want to deal with, but you can't, if you got a stalker or whatever, you don't choose that type of stuff.
You tell me that all the time from your experience,
Yeah, I've had many a stalker, believe me. So we talked about the fact that she was already getting some small acting roles. She was already heavily involved in modeling to the point where she was making for some of these things, $1,000, $3,000 per gig.
Yeah, which is good money.
21-year-old college student.
Yeah.
She was doing good. She was on her way. And in between all of that, talking about being an overachiever, she worked at a restaurant.
Yeah, I think she was the hostess at a very popular high-end restaurant.
And she was attending Santa Monica Community College full time. So we're talking about carrying a full course load, working at a restaurant. In between all of that, doing these acting and modeling gigs.
That's pretty inspiring, man.
Inspiring and aspiring.
Sure.
I think you could use both those words.
I think you could. Just like interesting and interesting.
Right. You can put the T in, you can keep it out.
Yeah.
However you want to.
That's how we roll in the Midwest.
In the Midwest. We don't even use the T on that. But the one thing about Juliana that really came out was the fact that at this young age, 21 years old, she already had a taste for the finer things in life. She really enjoyed traveling. And like we said, very, very beautiful. She probably had no end to the men that were pursuing her.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, she had guys her age, and she had men
much older.
It could be her daddy
Well,
wanting to take care of her.
Well, I was going to say that probably included a lot of these men willing to lavish her with gifts and travel and spend a lot of money on her.
Yeah.
But on March 15th, 2008, this was a Saturday, someone entered Juliana's bungalow around 9:50 p.m. And this person was able to get into the bungalow without breaking in. So no signs of forced entry.
Yeah. So they either had a key, or she had to leave the door unlocked, or the person knocked on the door and she let that person in
because she knew who it was.
Because she knew who it was.
Yeah. So
the only options,
really only 3 or 4 different options, but it's pretty easy to narrow it down if there's no sign of forced entry.
And where she lived, all the windows had the bars on them.
Oh, okay. I know what you mean.
Yeah. So no one could get through that way either. So that's how they were able to determine it had to be one of the 3 options.
And one thing that is known is that there was a 911 call placed from her bungalow, but it never technically went through.
Yeah, for some reason the cell phone had the fail call.
So that's how they knew.
Just when you need it the most, the cell tower didn't connect. That's good to know, right?
Yeah, that's not a good thought to have.
What if that would have connected?
It could have changed everything, or things could have happened still so quickly that
Still, it would have been nice if it went through.
But inside this bungalow, there would be a very, very brutal confrontation. And I don't know, I might be selling it short by calling it brutal. This was violence to the extreme.
Yeah, it was bad.
So Juliana begins fighting with this unknown suspect, and it carries on throughout essentially the entire bungalow. I mean, they are fighting all around this house. Very, very physical fighting. Juliana's head was banged off the floor. They know that. They could tell that. She had broken fingernails. She was choked to the point that, her throat was crushed.
Yeah. This was the biggest fight of her life. And unfortunately, somebody got the upper hand on her and crushed her throat.
And ended her life.
You know how violent that is, to crush somebody's throat?
What? And I don't know how, it seems like it would take a lot of strength to do that.
It would take a lot of strength. And knowing that while you're doing that, so if I was trying to crush your throat, you would use everything you could to defend yourself, to punch me, to scratch my hands.
Everything.
Yeah.
I'd kick you in the nards.
So
gouge out your eyes.
Yeah, I could, but I can see in the dark. So,
but she was doing this. I get your point though, because it's one thing like if somebody was passed out, immobilized,
right,
and you have free reign,
right,
to choke somebody. That's much different than if you're in the middle of a fight, for somebody's life. They're pulling at you, they're punching you. So it's something. There would have to be something to choke somebody to death like that. So the police eventually arrive along with the firefighters. They enter the bungalow and they see a burning candle on the coffee table.
Yeah, just like one of those Yankee candles or whatever you call them.
Like praying a glass. Pretty safe on its own.
Yeah, one of those good smelling candles just sitting there burning.
The problem is they immediately smell gas.
Yeah.
Natural gas.
They kind of walk into a wall of gas.
And it's rolling kind of
out the door.
Towards them, past them, out the door. That's a little scary when you've got open flame. But it's amazing that, police and firefighters get there when they do. Because of this situation, open flame, natural gas filling up the home, because probably not much longer, Gibbs, this would have ignited.
Yeah, I think it was lucky because this bungalow complex that she was in was an older structure. So the gas didn't flow out as fast as it would, and something newer today out of the gas range, and would fill up the unit faster versus this older unit, having a lot of, wasn't airtight, right? It had a lot of...
and that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Yep. And that helped it not ignite and blow
maybe
up.
a little more leakage.
Leakage, there
because
you go.
of the age
Yeah, you
of
know
the
what you're talking about.
structure.
Yeah, you're good at that. Leakage.
Leakage.
You got some of that going on
Got
yourself.
leakage. But it was said that if this thing would have ignited, given the amount of gas that was pouring out, it would have probably exploded and taken out the whole building.
Yeah, I think
complex, not just her bungalow.
right. I think it would have leveled the whole place.
And what would have happened had that occurred, you can kiss any evidence goodbye, right? It would have been charred, burned up, very hard, much harder, right? To pull any type of evidence once that happens.
Yeah, I mean, if done correctly, it's almost perfect.
All right. Now you're getting weird again. Like you're
getting
you
weird.
got it planned or something. If done correctly.
Well, do you have a gas range here?
No.
Okay.
So don't even try. Don't try
Okay.
nothing. But because this didn't happen, police are able to eventually search the bungalow. They find her body, Juliana's body, in a back bedroom. She was deceased. They determined that she was murdered. As we talked about, her throat was crushed very violently. Police would begin their investigation and they find DNA evidence everywhere in this bungalow.
And I think because this suspect was going to blow the place up, they just figured, I don't need to clean anything up.
I don't need to wear gloves.
Oh, yeah.
I don't need to wipe anything down.
Nah, because this place is going to blow soon, an hour after I leave here.
I believe you're right. I mean, we're talking about DNA on the door lock. There was a broken dish that had DNA on it. It was on the gas stove knob, which makes a lot of sense. It was on Juliana's T-shirt.
Yeah, on the front and back of her shirt.
And, of course, on her throat.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, I should have said this correctly. DNA that was not hers.
Right.
Right, because there's DNA all over the house.
Yeah.
I'm specifically talking about DNA that was not hers.
Right.
That they believe belonged to the killer.
Exactly.
And they also recovered DNA from underneath Juliana's fingernails, which you would expect that.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to, defense-wise, you're going to fight. You're going to dig, scratch, jab, whatever, man.
Poke your eye. Like I said, I'm poking your eyes out.
Yeah.
I'm going to fish hook you.
I'm biting and chewing, man.
Everything. No way am I going out without putting up the biggest fight of my life. And I'm sure she did.
Oh, she had to.
But she was probably up against somebody that she just wasn't able to overcome.
Yeah.
So the investigators collect all these DNA samples and they send them off to the lab for ID. And the other thing that they're doing is they're walking through the events of that night. They're talking to neighbors. They're talking to anybody that might have heard or seen something. And they do find a 13-year-old neighbor. This girl lived next door to Juliana, who said that she heard some furniture moving around, what sounded like furniture moving around, and she heard some screams around 9:53 p.m.
She was always very friendly and always very kind and almost loving. It's kind of scarring, hearing someone crying out for pain and knowing the fact that their crying out for pain was real and they didn't survive.
So that was a 13-year-old neighbor. Definitely later on in time, right? She wasn't 13 years old right then when she gave that interview.
Right.
But you can hear it in her voice how troubling it is, Gibbs, for her to know that she heard Juliana probably most likely being killed.
Yeah, that's got to be rough, man.
That's something that would live with you.
Because, I mean, I think all of us at one point have heard some screams that we just didn't think anything about.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, if I hear something next door, coming from the house next door, do I just assume they're having a party? So I don't assume that somebody is being murdered.
No, you just don't. I mean,
actually, I probably would, but
now you would. Yeah.
Most people not into true crime the way that we are and the whole TCAT family, those people don't naturally go to the, oh my gosh, somebody's being murdered.
Yeah, I just figured like when I was early in life living in apartments, you hear some screaming, just figured either the husband or the boyfriend forgot to put the toilet paper holder right and getting a little lashing.
Or it was a good night.
And they're
it's
just
either
getting
a bad night or a good
or
night.
they're getting a freak on and whatever is whatever.
Whatever is whatever.
Yes, right.
We should have a T-shirt that says whatever
Gibby
is
says
whatever.
whatever is whatever.
But we talked about it earlier. Juliana tried to call 911. Investigators find her cell phone. They're able to figure this out, and they can pinpoint the time of that, and it lines up with this 13-year-old neighbor's time of 9:53. They know it was somewhere between 9:50 and 10:15 when she was murdered. They're able to piece all of that together. After that, investigators reach out to friends, family, just like they would in any case. They're starting that type of interview process. Juliana's dad, he was a pharmacist back in Arizona, and in his interview, he offered up a potential suspect very quickly. And he throws out the name of a man named John Gilmore. And John Gilmore was Juliana's boyfriend over the last couple years. They would date on and off. They would see other people, probably break up. You know how it is, Gibbs, when you're that young.
Oh, yeah.
You break up, you get back together.
I hate you. I love you. I hate you. I love you.
It's a Ross Rachel, on a break type thing for a lot of kids that age.
You just brought up Friends.
I did. Love Friends.
Yeah. Okay.
But no matter what happened in their relationship, they always came back to each other at some point. And investigators would interview John. He's described as kind of a Spicoli-esque surfer guy. And he would tell police that he was at her bungalow the next morning after the murder. So Sunday morning, he stopped by, knocked on the door, but there was no answer. And this is what is really amazing, because we talked about this leaking gas.
Yeah.
And the lit candle, and we should have stressed it more, but I mean, this thing went on for quite a long time. The police didn't show up within like an hour or two.
Oh, no, yeah.
It was like the next day.
Yeah, because he gets there, she doesn't answer, he looks in, and he'll tell the police in the interview that he saw the lit candle on the table. So...
Must have been a big-ass candle.
Big-ass candle, and like you said, the suspect didn't turn the gas stove all the way up, and because the way the house was and everything, it was just bad gas flow, so it was going to take forever to fill up.
Still kind of amazing.
It is amazing. The firefighters and police did say it was pure luck that it didn't blow.
I'm sure they were
prior
shocked
to them getting there
to know that much gas was leaking over that period of time.
Yep.
But also in the interview, John Gilmore would tell investigators that the pair argued a lot. But again, these are kids that have been dating. They're in their early 20s.
Oh, we all know that couple. We all have those friends that fight like cats and dogs,
but
man.
They can't stay away from each other. And yeah,
but I love them, or I love her. I got to go back to her.
Are you playing both parts?
I just did
again.
My Oscar performance,
because they sounded exactly the same.
Well, when you with a couple long enough, you start looking and sounding the same.
You start looking like your dog. I've heard that one.
Yeah, I've seen some people that look like their dog.
I've never heard it where the couple starts sounding the same with the same high pitched tone that you just used.
It can happen.
But the other thing that would come out about John was that when he got drunk, he could become very violent. It was said that in his past, he would kick car doors. He would try to break into Juliana's bungalow. And they had actually even argued the day before she was murdered. So that must have been Friday. And the argument stemmed over him wanting to go out with his buddies to go out drinking.
That's a pretty common argument for a lot of couples.
Yeah, I know your wife says she is tired of it, man.
Fed up.
She is fed up to hear.
Actually, she just, please go.
Please go.
Please go.
When you've been married as long as we have, it's like,
please
hey,
go.
Do whatever you want to do.
Yeah. Maybe somebody will want to take you away from me.
If I'm lucky, somebody will
she'll say,
take you out of my life.
Tell them it's okay.
But John was adamant with investigators that he had never been physical with Juliana.
Sure, they got physical.
Well, he never hit her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're right. That word physical can be used a couple different ways.
Yeah.
He was never violent.
Yes.
Physically violent with her. That's what he would tell police. Now, his story went that the night of the murder, he did go out with his buddies drinking. And at the same time, she went out with one of her girlfriends. So Saturday night. And apparently they were about 3 miles away from each other in separate bars.
Yeah, it's not too much of a distance, you know?
He would also tell investigators that they were texting back and forth all night. So again, kind of a early 20s couple thing, right? In the new digital age.
Sure.
You're out with your buddies, but you're having a constant texting conversation with probably the person you should have been with that night anyway.
Hey, baby, I miss you.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not having any fun. I don't.
You don't have to give all your secrets and your tactics away.
I hold them back.
And one very important detail that John gave, and I'm sure it could have been backed up by cell records, is that, you know, they had been, even though they'd been texting all night, after 10 o'clock, he never received a response to any of his texts from Juliana.
And it freaks him out.
And it would.
Because he's like, you know, I'm guessing he's thinking, is she pissed off? Is she...
Because she was pissed that he went out with his friends, but...
Or did she find somebody else while she was out and she's being too friendly with somebody? So then he starts trying to call her and she doesn't answer the calls as well. So it concerns him, but doesn't concern him enough that he didn't go over to the house that night, right?
And he didn't call the police. He wasn't thinking something like that was going on.
No, I think he just figured she was pissed at him.
Yeah. But like we said, he did stop by the house the next morning. Also that morning, Juliana's mom, she started to get worried. Right, she couldn't get a hold of her daughter, and she was to the point where she called the police. So she was very worried, and this is what caused them to go out.
Yeah.
And find the scene that we talked about. But back to the DNA that was sent off to the lab, it takes about 90 days to get the results on that. And when it comes back, I think it's a little bit shocking to investigators because it points directly at a woman.
Yeah, I think in their mind, the suspect had to be a man because of how violent the fight was and how violent, method she was killed by crushing that throat.
Yeah, that's where their first thought would have gone to. And now it comes back that, you know what? This was a woman that left this DNA. So based on the DNA they found, a woman opened the door, turned on the gas on the stove, touched the clothing that Juliana was wearing, like you said, Gibbs, front and back, they found DNA, and crushed her throat, killing her. So now that they have this information about the female DNA, they start to collect DNA samples from every female that they're able to identify that's associated with Juliana, right? That's in her life at that point in time.
It's like 40-some people. That's a lot of samples.
It is, but, she was a popular girl. She probably had a lot of friends, but they all come back negative.
Yeah.
So you mentioned 40 samples.
Not to get one hit. I think the police, I think the family, anybody involved was extremely frustrated.
So that angle doesn't work. Investigators turn to looking at and investigating some of Juliana's past relationships. And one of these relationships that they start to look into, right from the beginning, I think they feel like it's pretty strange. It's a male doctor who was about 18 years older than Juliana.
Yeah, that's like an age gap.
A little bit of an age gap. The man was Lebanese American, but a renowned, well-known surgeon.
Extremely wealthy, too.
Very wealthy, and it was said that he was very flashy. This is not a guy that was hiding his wealth. This isn't Warren Buffett driving around in some 1980s pickup truck.
It's kind of like you sitting over there in your leisure suit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That I got from an estate sale. But this guy, he owned real estate, extensive real estate all over the world, very well traveled, and we hinted about it in the very beginning. So this is most likely where her initial attraction might have come from. It's a wealthy guy. He's a doctor. He travels. He probably lavished her, like we said, with gifts and trips and all of those things.
Well, when you're young, impressionable, people flashy like that, pulling up in expensive vehicles and throwing out $100 bills, y'all.
Dollar bills.
Dollar bills, y'all.
Yeah, but, taking her to very expensive restaurants, maybe taking her to Paris. I don't know if that happened, but...
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
a 21 or 20 or 21-year-old girl could really get kind of sucked into that lifestyle.
Yeah.
Very quickly. So this doctor's name was Munir Ueda.
I didn't eat anything.
Ueda.
I didn't do it.
Ueda.
I didn't.
And he received his medical degree in Beirut, Lebanon, then came over to New York, trained there, and spent time at various hospitals on the East Coast. After becoming a surgeon, Ueda dove into some other businesses, and they were successful.
Yeah, he had some other medical equipment businesses. He had his real estate businesses. So everything that he seemed to touch was kind of like gold.
But he also had kind of a checkered past as part of some of these business dealings as well. He had been accused of fraud.
Yeah, on one of those fraud cases, he did something like for his medical practice. He got one of those CAT scan machines that are like $1.5 million, really expensive.
1.21 gigawatts?
That's right. Well, anyway, so he got one of those and he defaulted, didn't pay, and would not return it, and defrauded them out of the $1.5 million. That was one of the cases against him.
So how much one of those things cost?
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
One of those, you're sitting there, makes that loud ass noise every like 2 seconds.
Either an MRI machine or a CAT scan or one of those.
I don't know which one they are, but they're expensive. That was back in 2000, early 2000s. So they're probably like 3-4 million now.
Beeple, 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 beeple.
Yeah.
But remember, we talked about he was flashy. He had a beach house, a horse farm, a number of high-end luxury cars, a bunch of sports cars. But the thing about Ueda was that he had a thing for young, beautiful women.
He did. He'd like to collect them.
Just like he liked to collect cars.
Yeah.
He collected beautiful women.
He'd like to show them off.
And this is how he found Juliana. They met in 2007. And he was immediately attracted to her. And most likely she was attracted to him, or at least what he had to offer. I'll put it that way. We'll throw up pictures on the Facebook page, but you put these two side by side, they don't look like they quite...
One thing doesn't belong to the other.
Yeah, they don't quite match in the looks department.
Yeah.
Not that looks is everything. I'm not saying that.
I mean, he's not hideous, but they don't go together.
I didn't say he was the elephant man.
No.
And he even offered Juliana a job in his medical business. He wanted her around him.
Sounds a little controlling.
Maybe. And in this assistant type role that she had, I don't know what she did, but apparently she was paid very well. She got bonuses. She was at one point given a luxury SUV.
Not like getting a little Land Rover, Range Rover.
I wish somebody at my work give me a Land Rover.
That's not going to happen. We work at the same place, I can tell you.
No, it's not.
It's not going to happen.
And at one point, she moved into his Beverly Hills home.
Yeah, she started kind of falling for him. She really liked that lifestyle.
So he went from being boss to boyfriend.
Yeah, fairly quickly.
Now, he loved it. He would take her to events. He wanted people to see her on his arm. But some of her friends were getting in Juliana's ear. I think they could see the relationship for what it really was. I think one friend in particular came right out and said, this guy, he's trying to buy you. He's trying to buy your love.
Yeah. And that's never good, man. I've known some people who've done that, where they just shower their girlfriend with any and everything just to try and impress her. And at the end, when it all level sets, they're not going to be happy.
It's probably not going to work out long term.
No.
But I think Juliana started to see this relationship for what it was. She started to get uncomfortable with it because, he starts proposing marriage, starts telling her that he's going to buy her a Lamborghini when she turns 21. And to her credit, she got out of this relationship. She says no to a Lamborghini.
It'd be tough.
I'd like to have a Lamborghini, but, she breaks it off with him.
Yeah.
Because I think she knew what was going on. And this is when she moved to the bungalow. It was around September of 2008. And she got some financial help from her dad to pay for this bungalow. But the problem with this whole thing is that it doesn't stop Dr. Ueda. You know, her breaking it off, her moving out, trying to get on with her life. He's continually trying to win her back.
And he was very aggressive, very successful. And because of that, you know, he's used to getting what he wants, and he wants this. And he's going to do what seems like anything to get this girl.
You know, it was said that he even planned a trip for her and her friends to Vegas to celebrate her 21st birthday.
That'd be a great trip, man.
All expenses paid, first class.
Be like that movie.
For all of them. What movie?
When the 4 guys go out and go to the top of the hotel.
Hangover?
Yeah.
Oh. The Wolf Pack?
The Wolf Pack.
Oh!
Yeah, that's pretty good, man.
But he doesn't stop there. He takes this thing to another level because he reaches out to Juliana's dad, who's a pharmacist. He tells her dad that he's in love with Juliana, that he'll give her anything and everything she ever wants. And then on top of that, he offers her dad a job.
Yeah, but not just any job, man. Almost $500,000 a year to work for his medical company.
That's some serious cash.
That is some serious greenbacks. It's a lot of dollar bills, y'all.
But her dad doesn't just immediately fall for this big chunk of money. But like most dads would, he says, you know, I got to investigate this guy. I got to figure out who this doctor is because he's not getting a great vibe from this guy.
Well, it's a little strange when somebody says, I love your daughter, I want your daughter, and I'm willing to pay you a good salary to work for me. Yeah, I think I'd have to look into it a little bit.
Yeah, that's too good to be true.
Yeah.
Right? There's something behind it. Nobody just does that because they're a nice guy. So the dad is looking into Ueda's background, and it's during this time that the Vegas birthday trip for Juliana takes place, and Ueda goes on this trip. So this wasn't just, here, I will pay for you and your friends to go. I'm coming too.
It's like don't forget me. I'm going to join you on the charter.
And it's while she's in Vegas that she gets a call from her dad, and he's done some digging. He tells her that Dr. Ueda's married, wife, kids, in another country. She's very upset by this. She's feeling, betrayed by Ueda, and she confronts him. And a huge argument breaks out over this fact that, he hid from her that he was married.
Yeah, that normally doesn't go well when you lie to somebody, especially on that level.
Women don't like to find out later on that you're married.
Yeah, normally not. It's not a good thing.
When you've said that you weren't.
Can't imagine that being good.
And after this huge argument, they break up for good that night. And she leaves the room. She goes to one of her girlfriend's hotel rooms to stay. And they fly out the next morning. And she's thinking that this relationship is over, right? I've ended it. I told him, get the heck out of my life. But it's not over for the doctor because he continues to stalk her. He is not going to let her go.
No, he's going to keep texting her. He's going to drive by her bungalow. And he's that type of guy that somehow he magically always appears at different events, different clubs that she's at. He's there. And it starts creeping her out.
Which it should. On top of the stalking, he's still trying to mess with her dad.
Yeah, he's still backdooring the old business deal with the daddy-o.
Trying to get him probably on his side, offering him jobs, offering him money. And at one point, the dad does take him up on an offer. It's a trip to Vegas to see, a big boxing match. So they fly out together, Juliana's dad and Dr. Ueda, to Vegas. Unbelievable, probably ringside seats for this match that cost, God, who knows how much, Gibbs. Those tickets are outrageous.
Oh, it's extremely expensive.
Hell, it costs like $90 to watch some of those things on pay-per-view.
Yeah. Well, you're talking thousands of dollars for seats for something that might only last 30 seconds.
Yeah, big time money. And it's during this match they continue to talk about the dad coming to work for Ueda, and he's got some interest. It's big money. We're talking.
Well, when you're talking $500,000, your ears perk up a little bit.
And it's not just the job and the salary. Now he starts offering him Lamborghini or some car of his choosing.
Yeah, he's even talking about how he can assist him with the mortgage to live in the high-end neighborhood, kind of like he does in, near or around Beverly Hills.
So they continue to negotiate this deal, and eventually it falls through. They can't see eye to eye on it. But the key point to this is that it falls through just days before Juliana is going to be found murdered.
Yeah, about 5 days before.
Yeah, 4 or 5 days. Not very long at all. So when investigators find this out, it's a big deal. Because now they're thinking, there's some motive there.
There's something there.
They're looking at the Dr. Ueda pretty hard at this point. Because he tried everything. Everything kind of was failing in his attempts to win Juliana back. I mean, he's obsessed with her at this point.
And he's not used to losing.
Yeah, you're right. He's very successful. People like that don't take the word no very well, and they don't take losing very well. But Dr. Ueda has an alibi for that Saturday night when the murder occurred. He was out of the country. And let's not forget, it was not a man's DNA that was found at the crime scene. So they're trying to piece all of this together, and investigators start to dig into Dr. Ueda's female friends, family, associates. And it's a 47-year-old real estate agent named Kelly Sue Park, an associate of Dr. Ueda's. She comes on police radar. So much so that at a certain point, they start to tail her. And at one point during this tail, they notice that she throws down a cigarette butt. They pounce on it, they grab it, they analyze it, and they get a hit. Her DNA matches the DNA that was found in Juliana Redding's home. So police now have their suspect, Kelly Sue Park. But what's baffling to them is that, Juliana Redding didn't have any ties to Kelly, and Kelly didn't have any ties to her.
Perfect strangers.
Really, they were. So the question is, why would Kelly Sue Park allegedly come into Juliana's home that night, attack and murder her? They don't even know each other. Now, what they did know is that Kelly worked for Dr. Ueda, but in a very strange way, Gibbs. I mean, she wasn't a nurse. She wasn't a medical assistant, a receptionist.
No, she was a licensed real estate broker, and it was said that she was helping him win those deals. But that's not really what she was known for.
She was like his muscle.
Yeah.
Like an enforcer.
Yeah. Kind of like Gibby.
Like a female Gibby.
Yeah.
Somebody you don't want to meet in a dark alley.
Don't cross me.
Naked.
Or naked.
And there was a lot of people that knew this. And they knew Kelly Sue Park as an intimidating, thug-like person. Because what we haven't talked about is her description. 6 foot tall, muscular.
It's like me with a wig.
Yeah, 30 years ago. And 30 years ago.
And 30 years ago.
No, but I mean, she's built like a brick shit house.
She can take care of business.
So the question becomes, did the Dr. Ueda, pay her to murder Juliana? And I think in the police's mind, it's one of those, if he can't have her, nobody else is going to have her.
Yeah, and to kind of back this up, the investigators come across some previous investigations where they had an informant that was wired up, and during a conversation while they were looking to the fraud issues with him. So on this wire, they've got the doctor talking to Kelly, and basically he's telling Kelly to go over, see this banker, and get this banker to blank blank, basically he's saying, tell that mother blank to take care of this.
What were the first two blanks? The blank blank.
The blanky blank.
I mean, that's a real hard Wheel of Fortune puzzle
I know it.
You got going on there. Tell that guy to blank blank.
If you can figure out the blankety blank.
So he's sending her over there to intimidate him.
Absolutely. Yeah.
To straighten him out, to get him what Ueda wants him to do. And I think prosecutors start to think that this is probably what happened to Juliana.
Yeah.
Dr. Ueda sent Kelly Sue Park over there to straighten her out, to either say, you need to go back to Dr. Ueda.
You need to come back and you tell your dad to take that job.
Or things aren't going to go well.
I think the prosecutors feel they probably got into an argument.
Yes.
Then it got physical. And then this muscle thug is how they would probably describe her, right? This thug went too far with her enforcement, and instead of just kind of roughing her up, ended up killing her.
One clue proved to be crucial. DNA evidence found on Juliana's badly bruised neck. It was left there by a woman. But who? Why? Investigators interviewed her father, Greg, and a picture emerged. A business deal gone bad between the father and his daughter's ex-boyfriend, a doctor named Munir Ueda. A red flag, because just 5 days after Redding canceled that deal, his daughter was found dead. Redding also told detectives that Ueda bragged to him about a female James Bond type who worked for him. Her name was Kelly Sue Park, described as a debt collector and enforcer. Investigators followed Park, hoping to get a sample of her DNA, and were in luck when they nabbed a discarded cigarette butt and matched it to the DNA evidence on the victim.
A female 007 type.
Kelly Sue Bond is what they were describing. Allegedly.
So on March 17th, 2010, they arrest Kelly Sue Park for the murder of Juliana Redding. She pled not guilty, and the judge gave her a bail of $3.5 million that she posted. $3.5 million. And they couldn't prove it, but authorities suspected that, it was the doctor, right, that put up this money.
Yeah, they were pretty much 100% sure, but they couldn't get the paper trail to line up the right way to
prove that he paid the money. But they do start to look into Park's bank account, and they can see that from 2008 to 2009, Dr. Ueda paid her over $1 million.
It's a lot of money.
For a real estate broker for one client.
Yeah.
That is quite a lot of money.
Yeah. We both dealt with a lot of real estate. And that's a lot of money.
No, there's a lot of people making some coin, but not for handling one client.
No.
But investigators know that's not what the money was for. No real estate agent makes that kind of money for that type of work. So they start to think, it's a payoff. He's paying her to be an enforcer, whatever it is. But 2 days after Park is arrested, things get even more interesting because the doctor takes off. He flees the country and goes to Beirut.
Take him out of the equation, and Juliana would still be alive today.
Mitchell Mora is an independent news producer who's been looking into Ueda. He agrees the only connection between Park and Redding, as described in these court documents, is the doctor. He's not been charged with a crime, but investigators believe that Park killed Redding on behalf of Ueda, and Mora can certainly believe that.
About 8 months before Juliana was murdered, I got in contact with a woman who had been dating Ueda. And the thing that got my attention about her from the moment I met her was the sheer look of terror in her face. I started investigating him. Right away, I saw someone who had a really shady past.
Allegations of bank fraud, pharmaceutical fraud, workers' compensation fraud, right here in the court records. And according to prosecutors, though he's believed to be in his native Lebanon, he's made sure to pay big money to Park's attorneys, who've managed to delay the case for years.
So even after he fled the country, he's still paying for the defense of Kelly Sue Park.
Suspicious. No other way to think about it.
Just a tad. A tad. So you heard in that clip about how the trial was delayed. It's not until 2013 that Kelly Sue Park finally goes on trial. And before the trial even begins, the court renders a pretty important decision. As the judge says that the prosecution cannot refer to Kelly Sue Park or as an enforcer or anything along those same lines, because they really don't have any proof that she was anything to Dr. Ueda other than a real estate agent, broker. So the prosecution has a problem because this is what they were going to use to tie Ueda and Park together. It was probably a big part of their case going in.
Yeah, I mean, this is the solid link to show them that they, besides their link of being real estate agent, broker to this guy, I mean, this was something solid. She's the enforcer for this guy.
And I think they had witnesses lined up that were going to testify to that fact. We talked about it just a minute ago. There were people that knew her as his enforcer because they'd had to deal with her before.
Oh yeah, they had the banker, they had other real estate brokers that on dealings when he wanted to buy something at the price he wanted, he would send her as the broker, but also the enforcer, along with some of her other associates to intimidate, to get the seller and or agents to go along with the price that they felt it should be sold at. They definitely had some witnesses, but the judge was not allowed this to be heard.
Now the defense has some money, because right, they're being paid well, and they use some of that money to hire a jury expert to help them select the right jury members.
And this is huge.
It's very big to the outcome of this case. It's actually a pretty big business.
Yeah.
You know, for these high profile, big time cases.
What are these? What type of psychologist you'd have to be to figure that stuff out?
I don't know. You'd definitely have to have a background in psychology, I would think.
They wouldn't be able to figure me out though.
Never.
Because you look right now, you can't even tell looking at my face right now.
Plus, if they got inside your head, boom, it's over.
They probably lock that dude up right
Everything
away.
they knew is just, it's like pudding in there.
Yeah. They'd have to call Freud.
But the reason why it's so important is I think the prosecution is feeling pretty good about their case. Now, they were dealt a blow in not being able to use some of what they had to tie the doctor and Kelly Sue Park together. But let's not forget, they have what is essentially a slam dunk. You can't really use that word because nothing's slam dunk, but they got
they use it.
They have a pretty compelling DNA case.
I would feel, as a prosecutor, pretty damn good about showing up the trial with what I have in my pocket.
With that type of evidence.
Absolutely.
This isn't a case where there was one item of DNA with 1 in 20,000. We have the cell phone. And the reason why the defendant's DNA was on the cell phone is clear. We have the stove knob. Why? Because the defendant was trying to clean up her mess. We have the interior door. Why? Because the defendant locked that door and went out the back. We have the DNA on Juliana's neck because that is how Juliana died.
So that is the prosecutor, and it does sound to me, Gibbs, like she's pretty confident, and I think she should be.
Yeah, I would have been.
You know, you can hear her tell the jury about all of the different DNA evidence that they have. Juliana's tank top during the struggle, the front door locks, the telephone, and probably the biggest one is on her throat. And obviously that's the manner in which she was killed. And we talked about blood on a plate, and it's actually a little bit more than blood. It was actually a bloody fingerprint or a thumbprint. And it turned out to be Kelly Sue Park's thumbprint.
Yeah.
In blood.
Yeah. It was a small blood thumbprint that was the plate that was in the sink.
So the prosecution, they hammer home all of this DNA evidence. I mean, this is what they're hanging their hat on. And after all of that, they rest. And now it's the defense's turn. And right out of the gate, you realize they're not going to challenge the DNA results. You know, the science is too good. The DNA is Kelly Sue Park's. They know that. But where they're going to focus their energy is on disputing how that DNA got there, how it got into Juliana's home. And the defense spends a lot of time showing how, you know, it's pretty easy to spread DNA, for someone to carry it, for someone to leave it behind. And they show how someone can leave your DNA footprint somewhere where you've never been. They would say that the real killer cleaned the crime scene, somehow planted Kelly's DNA using a towel that Juliana had brought from Dr. Ueda's house. So this is how they're going to explain it, right? Because Kelly Sue Park was probably at Dr. Ueda's house many times.
Yeah, and they say one of the last times Kelly was at Dr. Ueda's house was about 5 months ago, 5 months prior to the murder, and that when Juliana left his house, when she lived there and moved back, she took the towel along with many other things, including a dirty plate that had Kelly Sue's slightly bloody thumbprint on it, and took that all back to her place and just never washed the towel or cleaned the plate.
I'm sorry, Giz. I don't mean to laugh, but
It's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. So to believe that, you have to believe that somebody's going to have a dirty ass plate with blood on it.
Yeah.
And it's going to sit there for however many months.
In her sink.
And never get cleaned.
No.
Never hit the dishwasher, nothing.
No.
You have to believe that, the same with the towel.
And you'd have to believe that as a frantic killer trying to clean up everything that just happened, you grab that one specific towel and you use that one specific towel to wipe down the knob, the shirts,
her throat,
the knob on the stove, and everything else.
And not only that, but the specific part of the towel that comes in contact with all these surfaces just happens to have her DNA on that part.
Yeah. And has that much DNA that it can easily be spread around to get a match on everything.
This whole towel is full of DNA.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not laughing to make light of it. I'm laughing because it's so nonsensical.
Yeah, it's just
It's hard to
inconceivable
believe.
for me.
It really is. I mean, I think we're both saying the same things. Very hard for us to buy that this is very plausible at all. And could it happen? Hell, I don't know. Anything's possible. And that's where you get into maybe the question of reasonable doubt. We'll talk about that later, but
yeah, and
it's so far-fetched.
But that's what they're trying to set, right?
Yeah, sure.
Because secondary DNA transfer is so unlikely and so minimal. But to say it happened on all those surfaces, I mean, it's like you must know that you're going to hit that lotto soon as tomorrow comes. You know you're going to win that lotto.
Well, and their own DNA expert, the defense's own expert, he talks about this, that it's unlikely. I mean, he's kind of what you're saying, right? This secondary DNA transfer. It's unlikely to happen, but it could happen.
Yeah.
And that is huge in the minds of the jury in this case.
Especially if you handpick that jury.
Right.
Right? If you knew going in what your game plan was, and you had a chance, right? So when they get to pick the jury, they've got something like 30 minutes to decide, to interview that jury member, that juror. And they, based off their 30-minute interview, they decide to yay or nay.
Well, they don't get to pick the jury.
No, but they get to
strike. Right. Each side gets so many.
Yeah. And they can help influence who the foreman will be based off of that.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, if you have a really good jury expert that really knows their stuff, I am sure it makes a world of difference.
To the point, I think that they would say that they were initially in their planning, knowing what their defense was going to be, they were hoping that they could influence a hung jury.
But the defense also spends time working on Kelly Sue Park's character, saying she's never hurt anyone. She didn't even know Juliana Redding. And they talked about the doctor as well, not having a violent record. We talked about Kelly Sue Park, 6 foot tall. She was probably 3 or 4 inches taller than Juliana Redding. So Juliana was fairly tall herself.
Yeah, a lot of female
6'8",
models.
5'8", 5'9". I mean, she's fairly tall. But she probably weighed 40 to 50 pounds less than Kelly Sue Park. Kelly was muscular. She was built.
But the defense really didn't think that would be enough of a difference, the height difference, 4 inches taller, being 50 pounds heavier, that wouldn't give Kelly Sue an advantage. But
I beg to differ with that.
I do too. I mean, you look at Eminem. MMA?
MMA?
Yeah, Eminem. Yeah. No, MMA. If you look at MMA stats and if you look at boxing stats, they always talk about the reach because of the height. right? They talk about the weight difference, especially in MMA. I know it makes a difference.
Well, it's why they have weight classes.
Yeah.
You know, back in the beginning, I don't know if you remember the very beginning of the Ultimate Fighting, what was called the Ultimate Fighting Championship back
Right.
then. It was, they'd have a 160-pound guy fight a 350-pound guy.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that the bigger guy would always win, but man, you get on top of somebody and they can't get up, much easier to do what it is you're trying to do.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. It's not to say, and I know we'll get a bunch of people emailing saying, you know, lighter, shorter doesn't necessarily mean, and it doesn't.
No.
But it's hard to say that in most cases it doesn't give some type of advantage.
Normally there's some, especially if they're in shape, there's normally some advantage there.
Yeah. I mean, skill is plays a lot into it, but
Yeah, they all can't be like us.
yeah. And the defense would work hard to discount this millions of dollars that was in Kelly's bank account. You know, by saying that she was just a really successful real estate broker, working high-end homes, making big commissions, and that's a lot of commissions
It is. That's a lot of closings.
on big dollar houses. But again, I think she was a real estate agent, but she was doing a lot of work for this doctor. Now, the other thing that the defense did is they really tried to point the finger at Juliana's boyfriend, John Gilmore, saying, you know, he really is the main suspect in this case. But prosecutors were able to shred that because he had a very solid alibi. And his alibi was in the form of a video from a local convenience store, time, date stamped, all that good stuff, showed
Right.
that there's no way that he could have been at her house and murdered her during the time frame that they know the attack happened.
Authorities check the crime scene and they find Kelly Sue Park's DNA on the inside of the front door. They find it on the victim's cell phone, on a knob of the stove that was left on, and they find it on her neck, the victim's neck and her tank top. So that was really the prosecution's case. The defense argued that DNA is not the be-all and end-all here, that it doesn't tell you how it got there, and that maybe Kelly Sue Park's DNA could have been transferred at some point to the apartment by someone else or by some other means and ended up there. And the prosecution's case also largely connected Kelly Sue Park to the victim through this doctor, Dr. Munir Uwaida, who has never been charged with anything. But the prosecution's theory was that Dr. Uwaida had dated Juliana Redding the year before, briefly dated her, and while they were dating, offered Juliana's father, who was a pharmacist, a job, and that they had been involved in business negotiations up to just 5 days before the killing, when Juliana's father broke off the negotiations. And so that would be the motive for the killing, sort of an anger or a fury. Park worked for Dr. Uwaida, and the prosecution introduced evidence showing that there was more than $1 million in payments from the doctor to Ms. Park. Some of it around the time of the killing, and some of it later.
So I know that a lot of that is rehashing of what we've already said, but I think he does a great job of kind of concisely summing it up. And the reason I wanted to play it is because the jury gets the case. They deliberate this thing for 7 days.
Which typically not a good thing for the prosecution.
That's what I've always heard, right? The longer they're deliberating, the more likely that it's going to go in favor of the defense.
Right.
And in this case, that proves true. The jury comes back, finds Kelly Sue Park not guilty. And again, one of the reasons why I wanted to play that clip and just kind of very quickly summarize all the evidence. And right after the verdict is announced, I guess the courtroom erupted.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Juliana's friends, family were pissed.
They were yelling at Kelly Sue Park.
Oh, yeah. They were yelling all kind of profanity, man.
Calling her names.
Yeah. I don't blame them.
That side of the aisle was extremely upset.
I would have been pissed too.
Yeah, because you think about all the evidence that we've talked about. It seemed pretty overwhelming. But apparently, what turned out to be the key in this case, at least from the jury's standpoint, was some of those theories put forth by the defense. Stories or theories about the DNA transfer. And I go back to what you said, Gibbs. I just, how much of it was the fact that, the defense was able to get the jury that they wanted.
I think it was a huge factor.
I think it was huge too. Again, I don't know how it went with who got stricken and what the questions and all that, but you get a sense from all this information that they got the right jury, because this jury felt like the DNA evidence alone was not enough to convict Kelly Sue Park. And the only thing I can think of is that they had reasonable doubt somehow about how that DNA got there.
Wonder how they feel about it now.
I don't know.
When they look back.
I don't know. Maybe no different.
Maybe.
I mean, they were there. We weren't there.
We weren't. So we don't know how it was really presented.
Right. And that's always tough. The tough part about telling the story. And it's really hard to second guess a jury, although this one's tough not to. I will say that based on everything we know in the research, it does seem like a strange conclusion. I'll leave it at that. But I think one of the other issues was that, the jury never got to hear from Dr. Ueda. The prosecution was not able to get him on the stand. And you heard it in that clip. He has never been charged with any crime in connection with the murder of Juliana Redding. And to this day, he lives in Lebanon with his wife and children. So again, if you're a person that feels like he was the mastermind in this thing, that's hard to swallow for you if you feel like that, because this guy's living out his life, has done no time, not even sweated it, because he's never even been charged.
No.
Now, after the verdict, Juliana's parents issued a statement. And I want to read part of it. It said, "Our family is deeply saddened and shocked. We believe the evidence against the defendant is enormous and that justice has not been served." And I can see that. I can see their side of it.
I absolutely can.
As a parent, which we both are, it would be, number one, horrible, very tough to lose a child, but then to sit in that courtroom, and I'm sure they must have thought, this is a done deal. They got her. And for it to not turn out that way, that would have to be very, very tough. But Kelly Sue Park, she walks away, right? She's found not guilty, and she'll never be found guilty of the murder of Juliana Redding. Now, she would end up suing the lead detective that handled this case, claiming that the detective violated her civil rights. And this all centered around her claim that the detective intimidated a witness, but a judge ultimately dismisses this lawsuit. But what I think they haven't given up on, Gibbs, to some degree, is the investigation of Dr. Ueda. Not just to see what role he may or may not have had in the death of Juliana Redding, but also all of these different fraud cases that we talked about.
Yeah, his medical practice and everything.
They're still investigating him for a bunch of different types of fraud. They canceled his California medical license. And I have a feeling that Dr. Munir Ueda will never set foot in the United States again.
No, I don't think he ever will. If he does, he'll be in with the assistance of a FBI.
Well, I don't think it's in his best interest to come back. But again, this one is different than a lot of the ones we do, because there's a lot of these cases where there's a good suspect, that person's tried, but you ultimately figure out that it really wasn't them. And this is not that way for me. I'm not convinced of her innocence at all.
Me neither.
I know that the jury must have been, but now I shouldn't say that. They may not have been convinced of her innocence. They must have been convinced that there wasn't enough evidence. But even, like I said, even that's hard to fathom.
Yeah, I think and I can't remember which unsolved it was, but afterward, the judge would not convict the suspect, even though the judge said, Doesn't mean because I didn't convict, doesn't mean they're innocent. It just means that the prosecution did not do a good enough job of producing what I needed to convict them.
Yeah, I don't know how that relates to this, but it's a good story. And that was just 2 episodes ago, I think.
Yeah, well, I'm saying...
You act like it was 8 months ago.
I know. Well, you know my memory.
It was very recent.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, clearly they felt that there was enough reasonable doubt. However that was presented to them.
Yeah, and I guess my point is, normally in these cases that we do, the reasonable doubt is much clearer to me. I don't see the reasonable doubt here. But again, we weren't in the courtroom. We didn't see and hear everything and all that. It's just, this one's it's a very tough one. But that's it. That is the case of the murder of Juliana Redding. And I know you and I talk about this from time to time, Gibbs. I mean, this was a very young woman headed for what could have been stardom.
Absolutely.
I mean, she was on track to probably be in movies and could have been a leading lady. And not, I mean, that's one thing. I mean, obviously she had a great family and her family's going to miss her.
I think somehow she would have been successful
in something. Yeah, I agree with everything you read. She was just that type of person, whether it was a model or an actress or something totally different.
Podcast.
She might have had the best podcast of all time
out there. Yeah.
And I think that's, a lot of why these unsolves are so sad, because number one, a lot of these people had great potential. We never got to find out what they could have done. But then on top of that, their murder goes unpunished.
And that's the tough part.
Yeah. All right, Gibbs, we got some voicemails, so let's check those out.
Hi, Mike and Mike. This is Letitia Upton. I have done some emails with you, but I decided to leave you a voice message. I've been listening to your older podcasts, and you mentioned about someone making a homemade flamethrower. And if you watch The King of Random on YouTube, he teaches you how to make a homemade flamethrower and other great useful things that will be awesome for the zombie apocalypse, which I personally watch The Walking Dead as though it is a future zombie apocalypse instruction manual, so that, we can be prepared for those scary times coming ahead. Not that there's nothing scary now. Anyway, have a good day. Thank you guys for the podcast. Gibby, you make me feel like I need a K-bar. Bye.
That one actually cracked me up for a number of reasons. So, number one, I watch The Walking Dead, and I like it. Number two, I do believe in being prepared. Number three, she scares you a little, and she feels like she needs personal K-bar protection. But number four, and most importantly, that she feels, or she doesn't think that you probably already know how to make a flamethrower and have made several.
She just really knew.
Yeah. No, I got a kick out of that, and we appreciate it. And we do email back and forth, and she's given us some good show ideas and stuff like that. So.
Absolutely.
Hello, this is Steve Cantrell from Black Mountain, North Carolina. Most beautiful place in the world. I just wanted to call and say, got two sons, 27 and 22, who've had fun laughing at me because I ordered some stickers from you and thought nothing of putting them on the back window of my car. I don't know shit about stickers, so I kept thinking somebody was scratching them off that maybe didn't like the podcast, but it was happening every time it rained. And I soon figured out they're not all-weather stickers. I was hoping you could get some, because I guarantee I'll buy some. I know it's hard to buy when you're not sure if they'll sell, but it's better than being laughed at by my sons. So stay secure and keep your own stickers sticking.
I always get a laugh out of Steve's voicemails. There's always something funny about them. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to Google all-weather stickers.
Yeah, they make them, man.
I'm sure they do.
You just got to open that wallet up a little bit more there when you order the mic.
Yeah, I don't like to do that.
I know you don't.
All right, you got anything else, Gibbs, before we wrap up this episode?
No, that was a great episode.
Yeah, I liked it. I enjoyed it. It's always tough, right? You say, I liked it. I don't like the fact that someone died. I like the fact that it's fascinating. The details of the case and the subsequent trial and how this person got off. This one was very, very...
You want to say Interesting.
I do, but I'm trying not to. It was. No, I did. I enjoyed doing it. I enjoyed researching it. I know we both did. So, but that's it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.